طيب بسم الله الحمد لله الحمد لله رب العالمين له النعمة وله الفضل وله الثناء الحسن والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. I ask Allah the Exalted to grant us all the sincerest of intentions, the ability to understand and to do good, and the reward in the hereafter. Thereafter, the greatest blessing that a person can be granted, it is the blessing of Islam, the blessing of Iman. There is no blessing that is greater than it. If a person was to lose all of their worldly endowments, like the ability to see, the ability to hear, the ability to talk, even the ability to eat and drink and stand and walk and so on else, if they lost all of their wealth, they lost all of their loved ones, their friends, their family, everything went. And they were all alone. And if death then came to them in that state, if they had Iman within their hearts, then they would not die as a loser, compared to the one that has a lot of wealth, is in great physical health. They have their friends, family, all of these individuals around them. They are famous, liked by those around them, etc., etc. And then all of a sudden, death comes to them in a state in which they do not have Iman within their hearts. Such a person would die as a loser. If somebody was to say to you, this is a medicine that if you do not use it, you will lose your eyesight, for example, and you need to use it in a specific way at a specific time, one of us would not say, oh, this is too much, you just get on with it. Likewise, to safeguard something else among the worldly things, to protect one's Iman, from one point of view, this is not a difficult thing. It requires for a person to acquire a certain amount of knowledge and then to implement that knowledge, to believe in it. If you learn how to pray, you still need to pray. It doesn't stop there, isn't it? You need to do some extra physical actions in which you will be exerting a certain amount of effort. As for believing, once you've acquired that, unless you accept in your heart, you believe that issue in your heart, and as far as the issue of then believing is concerned, you fulfilled what you needed to do. You acquired that knowledge and you implemented it by way of believing in that particular matter. Now, yes, there are certain things that result from the correct Iman. That's another, if you like, consideration, another topic. But for the person to be considered a believer, they acquire the correct belief, they learn about the correct belief, they accept it, they believe in it in their heart, and as such, they have fulfilled what they needed to do, in as much as I said, to believe in what the prophets came with, to believe in the truth, to implement that matter. A person learns that Allah exists without a place, does not resemble the creation, is not like anything we can imagine within our minds. And then they believe in that. Okay, so they are now holding the correct belief as a result. However, some people, due to their neglect, they end up either not acquiring the correct knowledge so as to hold the correct belief, or they end up learning what the correct belief is but rejecting it. Allah ultimately guides whomever He eternally willed. Allah is not obligated to do anything, to guide anyone. He guides whomever He eternally willed. Had Allah eternally willed, He could have created us all in hellfire. And this would not have been an injustice from Him, because He is the Creator and He does whatever He eternally willed with His creation. He's not answerable to anyone. Some people, though, they actively discourage others from learning about the correct belief. And others related to that, they discourage others from learning how to protect your belief, your Iman. Some would want you not to learn about it and even, if you like, acquire it and accept it. And they'll put effort in that regard, so that you do not learn and you do not actually embrace Islam, you do not actually have Iman in your heart. Like they might say, why do you want to go and learn with the AICP or the Sunni Center? They just keep talking about the same thing again and again to try to put people off, because they talk about Allah existing without a place, or Allah not resembling the creation again and again. And I touched upon this in previous lessons. And among what I said is that when we say Allah exists without a place, this is glorifying Allah. This is exalting Allah. When we say Allahu Akbar, this means Allah is the greatest, greatest in status, greatest in rank. There is no one similar or equal to Allah. And if you say that statement again and again, this is something good. The believer rejoices at saying and hearing the name of Allah again and again. They don't say that if you're making dhikr, why are you saying Allah, 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 or Allahu Akbar again and again. And there are other ways by which you can praise and glorify Allah, like saying Subhanallah. Glory be to Allah, who does not resemble the creation. And you can even say it in one word, Ta'ala. Allah, Ta'ala. Ta'ala literally means the exalted. And it means the one who is exalted from resembling the creation. To say this again and again, this is also something good. Those who object to it, this is not something clearly good. That's the sign of a diseased heart and a misguided individual. These same people, if you were to give them something of the dunya over and over again that they enjoy, in general, you won't see them complaining. They won't say that, we've eaten from that restaurant or takeaway again and again. We've acquired this pound again and again, this money or that dollar. From the issues of the dunya, it can happen again and again, and they won't typically complain about it. But if the name of Allah is mentioned again and again, some people find that problematic. If Allah is glorified, if the correct belief is taught again and again, using whatever statements are being used, whether it is Allahu Akbar, Subhanallah, for example, or to be saying Allah is exalted, Allah does not resemble the creation, Allah exists without time and place. This is something good, something rewardable. Not just that, we are in an era in which people are in need of being reminded about these issues. And some of them are hearing it for the first time in their lives. Some people, and more than one individual, who attended classes like this, who didn't perhaps make notes, didn't review, many classes they attended for months. I heard them saying to me some very dangerous statements. Very dangerous statements. Yani statements that the general judgment pertaining to them would be that it's Kuffar. And in which context did they even say them? To try to express the correct belief. One such example, and just to clarify this point first, Allah is not in one place and is not in every place. God is not in one place and is not in every place. One person, whilst talking about this and the related issues of the fact that Allah, the question where does not apply to him. Okay? The question where does not apply to Allah. Where means which place. Allah is not in one place and is not in every place. How many times have you heard me say that? Loads of times, isn't it? These people did as well. Loads of times. Then one day, one of them, he's saying to me, somebody was saying that God is in the sky, and I told him you're wrong. So he's telling me that look how correct I did. So up to here, yes, that person has something wrong, and he corrected him. And then he's telling me what he went on to say. And he said something like, I said to him, look, we don't know where God is. Is he up there, here? We don't know where. And I'm just looking at the person like, what are you saying? No, it's not that. It's not what you're saying. Where does not apply to Allah. Up here and up there and down here. This does not apply to Allah. Even though he had heard me say this many times. Another person, very similar, just here at the Sunni center. The other one, I overheard him. I was inside and he was speaking to somebody. He said, oh, this guy was saying this. And I said this and this to him. And he ended up saying something very similar. I thought, what? What's he saying? So these things do need to be repeated again and again. And in them we are praising Allah, the Exalted. This is something from shaitan that would make us feel bothered about hearing these statements over and over again. Somebody praises one among us again and again. Usually people don't say, look, okay, you said well done, you're really good, excellent. Nobody usually say, look, stop. People usually enjoy it. One person comes to the room, oh, well done. Another person says, oh, well done. Different people say well done to us for something. We typically don't feel bothered by that. Anyway, so one needs to reflect upon this particular issue. If somebody thereafter and likewise says to you, you don't need to learn about these issues of Kuffar. This is something just for the scholars. You don't need to learn about it. Look what they are saying to you. They are saying to you that the most precious thing that you have, the most dear thing that you have, your Iman, your Islam, you should not be putting effort to protect it. Who other than a shaitan would say that to you? The one that wants you to lose the most precious thing that you have. Only a shaitan. So don't be distracted by those who come up with things like that, that these things, you talk about them again and again, and why do you want to learn about Kuffar, and this is something only for the scholars, and sometimes they say, oh, these guys, they go into too much detail. Many times it's like, which bit are you talking about? Which bit do you think is too detailed? Which bit do you think is really complicated? Just so that I know, so I don't go into it, because I don't want to confuse anybody. If there is something that is that complex for the, if you like, general public audience, I don't want to go into that, so I don't end up confusing somebody. So which bit is it? Usually they can't give, they don't give an answer actually to that. Sometimes people hear something for the first time and they think that you've gone into something really deep, but really you've just said something profound. Something deep that is, yes, it carries a lot of weight. It's not just a passing statement. Allah is not like anything you imagine in your mind. Allah is not in one place and not in every place. Some people hear that and it shakes them. Why? Because they've never heard it before, unfortunately. And they say to themselves, all my life I've been amongst the Muslims and I never heard that Allah exists without a place. Allahu mawjood bila makan. Allah exists without a place. Who created the sky? Allah. Who created the arsh? Allah. There was no sky. There was no arsh. And didn't Allah exist? Of course He existed. And after creating everything, He still exists without change. So, as I was then saying, after this, you learn about how to protect your Islam and how to protect your Iman. I.e., the way to protect your Islam and Iman is by acquiring the religious knowledge and not listening to the whispers of shaitan. That's not the way. The way is to learn the religious knowledge, as was taught by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's how you recognize what is Kuffar. And your primary aim in that is what? To protect your own Iman. The starting point is not that you learn about these rules just so that you can start to pass judgments upon others. I mean, your starting point is to want safety for yourself, isn't it? And then those who are related to that, those who are around you. So, what is Kuffar? What is Kuffar? Kuffar is whatever invalidates or cancels or negates Islam. One learns about it so as to protect one's Islam and Iman from becoming negated, cancelled. That's the issue. One learns about Kuffar so as to protect one's own Iman. Through that, then subsequently, you will also be able to protect other people's Iman and warn against those who call towards the negation of Iman. All of these things you'll be able to do. Yes, it is dangerous to call a Muslim a kafir, but it is also dangerous to call a kafir a Muslim. Both of these issues are there. Some people, they mention this point by way of saying, look, don't go into this topic. Don't go into this topic. Because it's very dangerous to call a Muslim a kafir. Well, the reason why we're learning this topic is so that we call the Muslim a Muslim and the kafir a kafir. Because yes, it is dangerous to call a Muslim a kafir, but it's also dangerous to call a kafir a Muslim. If you did not know how to differentiate between Islam and Kuffar, then look what your situation would be. If you do not know the difference between Islam and Kuffar, you might call Islam Kuffar and Kuffar Islam. And both of them clearly are very dangerous states to be in. It's not just about, I need to be very careful, I don't call a Muslim a kafir. Yes, I don't call Islam Kufr, but I don't call Kufr Islam. I don't call the kafir a Muslim. Even if the fact that there are some people who go around, they might see somebody, I don't know, praying without a hat on. He's a kafir. They see somebody making dua after as-salah, and they say, oh, he's a kafir. They hear somebody saying, La ilaha illallah, in a loud voice, again and again. They go, he's a kafir. There are people like that. Okay, there are people like that. If they just see somebody do something that is different to what they used to, they just say, oh, this is kufr. There are extremists like that. However, some of them in this town and other towns, they exist. These same people who believe that God lives in the sky or sits upon the arsh. This type of thing is known about them. Anyway, as I said, that if you do not know, then you will not be able to differentiate between right and wrong, between Islam and Kufr. So you need to have some knowledge and understanding about what is Kufr. What is it that negates Islam? What is that dividing line between Islam and Kufr? When I first started to learn, and unfortunately you're hearing people that were your friends and others saying some incorrect statements. So it was challenging from the point of view, all of these people that I know around me, many of them are falling into Kufr. Is that how it is? I wanted to know more about it. And there was like one sentence in a book of a Sheikh Abdullah Rahmatullah alayh that answered this issue and dealt with the emotional, if you like, matters that some people raise. And he said that if there was no way to differentiate between Islam and Kufr, we didn't know these rules to implement them, then Islam would be lost. And that's true. If you couldn't tell what's the difference in Islam and Kufr, Kufr and Islam, the line was blurred. Because we don't, some people say judge. Then you would end up calling the kafir a Muslim a kafir. You would end up saying Islam is Kufr, Kufr Islam, because the line is blurred and they've like blended together. And the religion would be lost. This is a fact. So there is a reason why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught these rules. And that's what we rely upon. Not emotion, not opinion. I don't just come up from myself and say, well, look, you're my friend, or you're wearing the wrong color hat, or you're from a different village to my father's, or whatever, and I judge you as a kafir and you as a Muslim, and I just go like that. That's not how it is. We go back to what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught with regards to what is Islam and what is Kufr. That's what we rely upon. So as to protect our Iman, so as to protect the most precious thing that we have. That, as I said, Shaitan does not want us to protect. He would say, why do you want to learn about this topic? Why do you want to go into it? Why not? Why would I not want to protect the most precious thing? More precious than my eyesight, my hearing, and all the other things that I have. Just as I said before, because if you lose all of that, but you still have Iman, and you die alone, away from friends and family, but with Iman in your heart, you die as a winner, not a loser from that point of view. Conversely, and if you have your friends and family and wealth and etc., and all of a sudden death comes to you and you don't have Iman in your heart, you die as what? A loser. So one needs to understand this issue and then put effort to learn this knowledge, to review this knowledge, by which you would be able to protect your Islam and to protect your Iman, by which you would be able to defend the religion. This is Islam and Iman. It has an essence and it is negated by Kuffar. How are you going to defend the religion if you have no understanding of this? How are you going to protect your own Iman if you have no understanding of this issue? That's by way of introduction. To go then further with some basics of this issue. So Kuffar, this is an Arabic word. The one who commits Kuffar is called a kafir. Okay? Kuffar, in brief, is anything that if done, it would make a person into a non-Muslim. Okay? Which in Arabic, as we said, we call a kafir. And it is divided into three categories in accordance to how it might be committed. A person might say something kufr, they might do something kufr physically, and they might believe in something kufr. Okay, so sayings, beliefs, and actions, whichever order you want to look at them. Any one of them alone is enough for the person to be judged as a kafir. I.e., if a person said something kufr, but they did not believe in it, then this alone would be enough for them to be judged as a kafir. For example, if somebody said, the sun in the sky is God, or they said, I am God, or you are God, you are Allah, for example. This is a kufr saying. Even though in their heart they don't believe in it. They don't believe that they are God. They don't believe that you are God. But they say it. Then in that situation, okay, they would be judged as a kafir. As I was saying, anything that makes a person into a non-Muslim, this is kufr. The one who does it is called what? A kafir. And this statement, a kafir, is clearly not an honorable statement to say about somebody. So it's not a light thing to say. To say it about a Muslim, of course, is very serious. At the very least, it's an enormous sin. We'll explain this in more detail in future lessons, coming up, any lessons that will follow. To say it about another Muslim, at least it's an enormous sin upon you. And sometimes it would be kufr upon you to having called another Muslim a kafir. For example, if another Muslim was just drinking some water and you go to him, you kafir. What? I'm just drinking some water. You are a kafir for drinking water. And it's not Ramadan, for example. No issue like that. He's not doing anything that is religiously prohibited. Somebody thinks they're funny and they say to him, you kafir. That person then commits kufr. Why? Because this person, their religion is Islam. They've not said or done anything of kufr or something that even the religion says is bad or ugly. By calling that Muslim a kafir in that situation, it's as though you said Islam is Kuffar. His religion is Kuffar. And this is Kuffar. But if a person was drinking alcohol, behaving like the non-Muslims, etc., so there's a context, and you say to him, you kafir, in the meaning that you are like the kafirs, then in that situation, you are sinful for calling this Muslim a kafir. But because of that context, in that situation, you yourself are not declared as a kafir. But it's still not permissible to call another Muslim a kafir. Going back though to the basic point that I was saying, if a Muslim says, does, or believes in something kufr, what do they become? A kafir. They're no longer a Muslim. Okay, they're no longer a Muslim. What if a kafir says, does, or believes in something kufr in addition to their original kufr? The answer is they go deeper into their kufr. It's not that this has no consequences, it has consequences. If a person, look at it, if somebody lies, you don't say, well, if they tell a second lie, that second lie has no consequence. If a person steals, and then they steal a second time, you don't say that that second stealing, theft, has no consequence. If they kill one person, you don't say, okay, now, if they kill a second or a third person, that has no consequence. That's not the situation in most laws in this dunya. And it's not the rule in our religion. That if you commit one sin after another, that this has no consequence. Everyone knows this. That if you commit one sin and then you do another sin, even if it's the same sin, it's not like he lied and he stole and he killed and he committed zina, then it only has a consequence. No. In that situation, it has additional consequences. But if you tell a lie upon a lie, if you steal and then you steal again, if you unlawfully hit somebody or kill somebody and kill another person, each of these, they have consequences. Likewise with the issue of kufr. If a person commits kufr once, this is kufr. They committed the most enormous sin that a person can commit. If they commit then a second kufr, this has an additional consequence. If somebody insults Allah once, okay, then they insult Allah a second time, you don't say that this has no consequence. Somebody insults us, they say to you, you idiot, you fool, you this, that, and the other. They insult you. Then they insult you another time and another time. Which person would say that all of these additional insults, they're not having an effect? They do. More so if somebody is insulting Allah, the Exalted. If they say that God is physically everywhere or up in the sky, and they say that statement again and again, this has consequences, and this is kufr again and again. They're going deeper and deeper into sin. Their situation is becoming worse and worse. If a person says about themselves, I am a kafir, okay, this statement in itself is kufr. When a person says, I am a kafir, what are they saying? They are saying, I am a person who, for example, does not believe in God. They are saying, I am a person who believes that Prophet Muhammad was not truthful, or that he was not a prophet. Isn't it? That's what a kafir in essence is. Saying that, of course, is kufr. So a person might commit kuffar upon kuffar, and this has consequences. It's not that it's without any consequence. So, to repeat and summarize that issue, if a Muslim commits kufr, they become a kafir. If a kafir commits kufr, i.e. an additional kufr, either repeating a previous kufr or a new kufr, the one that they'd not committed before, then they go even more deeper into kufr. Is that clear? The kafir might also be referred to by other names. Just as the Muslim might be referred to by other names. We might say a Muslim, we might say a mu'min, we might say a believer, for example. Each of these, they go back to the same issue of being a person who submits in belief to Allah, the correct belief, believes that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the Prophet of Allah. If a Muslim commits kufr, another word that we sometimes use for that in Arabic is ridda. Okay? And we say they become what? If a Muslim commits kufr or they commit ridda. These both words here, they have the same meaning now. If a Muslim commits kufr, they become a kafir. If a Muslim commits ridda, they become a kafir. You could add another terminology to that. If a Muslim commits ridda, they become a murtad. Okay, they become a murtad. In English, they use the word apostasy and apostate. So they would say a Muslim, if they commit apostasy, they become a kafir. Or if a Muslim commits apostasy, they become an apostate. You don't need to memorize these words for now. But if you come across them, you now know what is being referred to. Okay? They say this is ridda. In other words, they're saying this is kufr. They say the person becomes a murtad. It means they became a kafir. Some of our brothers and sisters, they also use another English word, blasphemy and blasphemer. Now, blasphemy is more of a specific type of kufr. Okay? One that involves insulting Allah or the religion. Okay? It's not as generalized as statements like kufr and kafir and apostasy and apostate, for example. But you can use it. If a Muslim commits blasphemy, they become a blasphemer. If a Muslim commits blasphemy, they become a murtad. If a Muslim commits blasphemy, they become a kafir. Right? All of these are just different ways of expressing. Just in case you hear them mentioned by myself or other teachers for that matter. Is that clear for everyone? Okay. If we go a bit further, if a Muslim adopts Christianity, they become a Christian, isn't it? If a Muslim adopts Christianity as their religion, they become a kafir. So Christianity is a type of kufr. Likewise, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and atheism, Sikhism, all of these, there are examples of kufr religions. So examples of kafirs, therefore, are Christians, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, atheists, for example. learning about these issues, talking about them, speaking in these terms, this does not equate to saying that we cannot live peacefully alongside people of other religions. Does not equate to that. The Christian says about themselves that they are a Christian. Okay? The Jewish person says about themselves that they are a Jew, and so on else. We are just clarifying the rules in Islam with regards to these matters. And saying this does not equate to that we cannot live peacefully alongside our non-Muslim neighbors. We might extend a gift to a non-Muslim, even while saying, yeah, this person is a non-Muslim, a kafir, a Christian, or a Jew. I might even smile at them. I might say hello to them. I might say, how are you doing? I might even say, I hope you are well. By way of extending good treatment to them, by way of attracting them to Islam. The Prophet ﷺ used to have dealings with non-Muslims, to the extent that it's mentioned that if a non-Muslim became ill, he would go and check up on him in some cases. Check up to see how they are doing. So, one shouldn't confuse between issues. Okay? One should not confuse between issues, i.e., not be like some people who say that by you talking about this issue, you are calling for problems in society and in our communities and the like. You should not mention the word kuffar or kafir. And this is a misunderstanding on their part, because the reality is, if people do not learn about these issues, some of what these people are trying to prevent, it's going to be more likely to occur. Because amongst what they are trying to prevent actually is those who go around randomly calling people kafirs, the extremists. And one of the reasons why extremism spreads is when there is a lack of knowledge. When people have the correct knowledge, then you would find a scenario in which they are not rushing to pass judgments against other people and transgressing the bounds of the religion of Islam. So Kuffar, this is the worst sin that a person can commit. There is no sin that is worse than it, in all of its forms, in all of its types. When we look at it in general, Kuffar is the worst sin that a person can commit. And this is evidenced by numerous verses of the Quran and sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Among them is what was narrated by Imam at-Tirmidhi in his Sunan, Imam Ahmad in his Musnad, and others, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Innal abda la yatakallamu bil kalima la yara biha ba'sa yahwi biha fin nari sab'ina kharifa." A person indeed might say something thinking it is harmless. La yara biha ba'sa, it means they don't see any harm in it. They think it is harmless. But that statement of theirs would take them 70 years into hellfire. Okay? 70 years into hellfire. And in another hadith narrated by Imam Muslim in his Sahih, it is explained to us. What does it mean to fall into the bottom, fall 70 years into hellfire? It means to get to the bottom of hellfire. For the Prophet ﷺ was with his companions, and Allah enabled them to hear a sound. When they heard that sound, the Prophet ﷺ said to them, "Do you know what that sound was?" They said, "Allah and His Messenger know best." The Prophet ﷺ, he said, a stone was thrown into hellfire, and it's been falling for 70 years, and now it reached its bottom. Allah enabled you to hear it. The bottom of hellfire is a distance of 70 years. And it's mentioned in the religious texts that there would be kafirs at a 40-year distance into hellfire. And it's also mentioned in the religious texts that the Muslims would not go into the depths that the kafirs reach. So if a kafir is at a level of 40 years, then what about at 70 years? This is the place where the worst of the kuffar would be. The least punishment that a kafir would be given is that they would have burning coal under their feet that makes their brain boil. That's the least of the punishment. That's the least of the punishment. So kufr is the worst sin that you can commit. But from this then, it is also known not all kufr is of the same level. The worst kufr that a person can commit is the kufr of ta'til, which is denying the existence of Allah the Exalted, denying that Allah exists, i.e. atheism. This is the worst type of kufr that a person can commit. The one that carries the worst penalty. And if you like, similar to it in being the worst are two others. To believe that Allah is physically everywhere, dwelling inside all parts of the creation. Or to believe that the creation is a part of God, like dwelling inside God. Both of these, along with atheism, are considered the worst. Because in them there is a very obvious and profound, open, arrogant insulting of Allah the Exalted and rejecting the truth. I know myself. I know I am created. I know all of my weaknesses, and in general, the limitations that I have. I'm aware of them. I know that I urinate and defecate. I make mistakes. I go to sleep. I'm limited in so many ways, not one way. I'm limited in dozens of ways. Right now, I can't see beyond this wall. I can't hear beyond a certain distance. There are certain things that are in this building or this town that I can't comprehend. If I try to imagine all of the different details, the screws, the lights, the curtains and the curtain hooks and all of the different detail inside this hall, I try to picture it all in one go. I'm limited, I can't do it. Just this hall, I can't grasp it all. In one instant, I can't grasp all of the detail that exists. It's not present in my mind. I can look at a part of the hall and I can concentrate. Yeah, that curtain's got that pattern on it, and there is a window and it's open, and okay, I can look at things. I comprehend all of the things. I can't. Not this one hall. Beyond my ability to do so. The average human being would not be able to do that. We're limited. Limited in what we can see and hear and reason about and comprehend and so on else. Through to then, I get ill, I get hungry, I get tired, and so on else. I've got many, many different weaknesses. How would I say that I am God or a part of God? A'udhu billah. This is a very, very, very abhorrent and ugly kuffar. And it's the worst of kuffar. Atheism is like that. Their mind tells them, would the bricks just throw themselves together and form a building? Would writing letters just throw themselves together and form sentences? I did not exist, and then I existed. All of these things are telling me what? There must be a creator. There must be a creator. To reject the existence of the creator based upon the fact that we, this limited person, does not understand why there would be evil. Yeah, this is clearly not humility, and it's arrogance. I'm limited. And it's not that there isn't answers to these issues about why is there evil. They just didn't ask the right people, perhaps. So they didn't get the right answers. But rather than saying, okay, this is something I want to know more about and learn about and know the wisdom about, what did they do? They rejected the existence of Allah. Some of them, like one person in the past, he was a Muslim. Then one day, he was a ruler in an area. His children went out, I believe they went hunting or something. Anyway, they went out. They were struck by lightning and they all died. As a result of that, he then ended up rejecting Islam. Not just that, he would actively push other people to commit kuffar. Why? How could, it's like they are saying, how could God do this to me? This is what he said. How could God do this to me? Kill all my children? These people who say, how can there be evil? If there was a God, there wouldn't be so much evil. And in one sense, they are also saying, there is a God, but we can't understand why he would create evil. And therefore, we are therefore saying, actually, there can't be a God. His reasoning is flawed and it's problematic on multiple levels. The fact that you don't understand something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Isn't that a very obvious point? Isn't that something that a person with a bit of intelligence knows? But what clouds the intelligence is arrogance. This is a fact. Think about it. Look how foolish it is to say that because of this, therefore that. It doesn't work. This is not intelligence. It's not intelligence. That is an argument that they are presenting. Okay, I get that. This is their argument. This is their claim. Because of this, this. Because they say there is evil, therefore there is no God. It's not logical that. This is not intellectually based. Because when you look at that, ultimately what they're saying is, I can't understand. How would God, they say, create evil? Because you don't understand it. It doesn't mean that evil doesn't exist, and nor does it mean, therefore, God does not exist. As I said, the fact that I can't comprehend all of the details of this building or this hall doesn't mean nobody built it. Doesn't mean that the curtains don't exist and the windows don't exist just because I can't comprehend everything in one go. The only thing that exists is what Fayaz can comprehend in one go. Come on, doesn't make sense to have that stance. Doesn't stack up. It's not a basis. It's not intelligence. They're not using their mind. Yeah, some people, because they didn't understand, how could this have happened to me? And many people, it starts like that. They face hardships in their life. Some of them might get bullied. Yeah, this is bad. And we would give them a lot of sympathy for that. And we'd say, look, this is wrong what happened to you. One of them might get physically or sexually abused. One of them might have lost their father in a very tragic way. Or other than that. And their response is what? Therefore there can't be a God. Your mind will tell you, God created you and that which you own. So therefore, who is the actual owner of everyone and everything? God. Because many of these people started off originally believing in God. Isn't it? Many of them. Darwin, for example. And other people like him, like Christians. At least they claim to believe in a creator. Even though we say their belief was not correct. And that's in part of the reason why they ended up where they ended up. But then they said, and I think it is his daughter that died, that triggered him towards rejecting the belief in the creator, and then tried to reason with, he said, science and so on to get to a particular conclusion. And many others like him. Another one, again, famous, I think his mom committed suicide. Another one, another issue. Like that, many of them is like that. And even if it wasn't that, it's not all of the atheists are like that, I know that. Not all of them. But just that alone, the fact that you faced some tragedy, we can be sympathetic to you, even if you're a non-Muslim. I could express condolences to you and show you a certain level of sympathy for the tragedy that you faced. The religion doesn't prohibit that. But to reject the existence of Allah, to renounce your belief in Islam just because you happen to face some difficulty. In the Quran, Allah revealed, you will face difficulties in this life. This is a fact. You will face hardships in this life. It's not something hidden. And Allah is the one who would create those hardships. He created you and your hardships and made this life a test. And on the day of judgment, it will be known who is the winner and who is the loser. If you follow the truth, you are amongst the winners. If you follow what is incorrect, you would be amongst the losers. If you give the side of your friends or your family, just because they're your friends or your family, even if they are saying or doing something wrong, then you would be a wrongdoer like them. Following blindly is something that is dispraised in the Quran, in belief in particular. In the Quran, Allah revealed that those who were worshipping idols at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they saw the miracles, when they were given the proofs that there is a creator who exists without parts and partners, who deserves to be worshipped, when this was conveyed to them, What was their response? Not one based upon logic or intelligence, because that was on the side of the prophets, using their minds. Just as Prophet Ibrahim did when he said, look at the sun, it comes and goes. This cannot be God. Look at the moon, it comes and goes. The stars, they come and go. They are not the creator. The one who brought them into existence is the creator. The sun is round. Why not triangle? It is this yellow color. Why not green? It cannot have specified itself with these attributes. The one who specified it with these attributes is the creator. And likewise, the Prophet ﷺ taught people, supported by miracles and the sound mind. What did the mushrikeen of Mecca respond? They said several things. At one point, they said, let's worship your God for a year and our gods for a year. Initially, they said, stop calling to the worship of one God. Then they said, okay, let's worship your God for a year and our gods for a year. Let's have a treaty, if you like, in this regard. The Prophet ﷺ famously said, if they put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand, I would still not give up calling people to Islam. And some people, for less than that, for the sake of maintaining a relationship with a family member or for some money or for a job, they'll end up compromising in the fundamentals of their religion. Anyway, also amongst what's mentioned in the Quran is that some of them said, how can we leave following the religion of our forefathers? That was their response. And they were dispraised in the Quran for it. How can we, they said, stop following what those like our ancestors, our grandparents were upon? Not i.e., this is logic, there is proof. No, it was how can we leave following what our relatives were on? This is clearly not something good. This is something that is dispraised in the religion, to follow blindly. Thereafter, we said that the worst type of kufr is atheism, okay, and the belief of some people that God dwells inside every part of the creation, or that the creation is inside Allah. These are the worst types of kufr. And we gave some reasons why some people believe in atheism. Among them is, as we said, they say that how can there be evil? But as I said, if they broke it down, they would reason otherwise. There must be a creator, and the creator owns me and that which I own. So by him taking something away from me is not injustice. This is how the sound mind would actually reason. Those who, on the other hand, say God is everywhere or we are a part of God, many of them, they say this as a result of misunderstanding certain texts of the religion. Like what Allah revealed in the Quran, وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ, which literally means God is with you wherever you are. They misunderstood that. This means God knows about you wherever you are. But they thought that it means God is everywhere. Okay? Another group of them, they misunderstood the ayah from Surah Qaf, Surah 50, verse 16. نَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. They thought that this means God lives inside people. That literally means God is closer to you than your jugular vein. They didn't realize and know that this means God knows about us better than we know ourselves. God knows about us better than we know ourselves. And Allah revealed in the Quran, يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا. Many people would read parts of the Quran and misunderstand it and become misguided. And this is an example of that. They didn't learn the correct belief first. They didn't go the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as is narrated by Ibn Majah in his Sunan, when Jundub, the son of Abdullah, he said, "Kunna ma'an nabi wa nahnu fityan hazawira, fata'allamna al-iman qabla an nata'allama al-Quran, thumma ta'allamna al-Quran fazdadna bihi imana." We were young men with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we first learned about Iman before we learned the Quran. Then we learned the Quran, and this strengthened our Iman. They learned the correct belief, and by that they were able to remain steadfast upon the truth. They didn't end up because if you read a verse of the Quran, okay, you don't end up rejecting it because you don't understand it. That's again arrogance. This is similar to that atheist. He sees evil, because he doesn't understand evil, he says, therefore there isn't a God. Some other people, they read verses of the Quran, and rather than, for example, saying, I did not understand this, some of them reject verses of the Quran. And some of them, they end up adopting incorrect meanings, and therefore incorrect beliefs. All of this is resolved how? By learning. Learning the religious knowledge, reviewing the religious knowledge again and again, learning from a person who learned from a person, like this in a chain of teachers back to the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. That's how you deal with the issue. And Allah, the Exalted, knows best. Is there any questions up to here about what I've said? I mean, this is the first lesson. We'll probably have about anywhere between 3 and 8. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. So Murtad is the person who was a Muslim and then became a kafir. Okay? The Muslim who became a kafir. As opposed to if they were, let's say, an atheist and they became a Christian. Or they were a Jew and they became a Hindu. Usually, I didn't hear that case. Now I'm doubting, but so let me not rush to pass. I'm going to ask about technically what's the word terminology that they use for that. You call them, the atheist became a Christian. Okay, you call him a Christian, and you can call him a kafir. You can call him a non-Muslim. What I understood is that you wouldn't refer to them in that scenario as a murtad. Murtad is specific for the person who was a Muslim who became a kafir, whether they became a Christian or a Jew or a Hindu, etc. And then if they went from Muslim to Christianity, Christianity to Judaism, Judaism to atheism, on all of this they are murtad. But that specific one, let me double check that to be sure. Barakallahu fikum. If there's no other questions, we'll stop here for today and we'll continue in the following lesson next week. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma wa ala alihi wa Allahumma